Imagine yourself falling through a time portal and finding yourself in medieval England. Are you doomed to nasty, brutish, and short life? Maybe not, if you follow our advice. If you search the term medieval on YouTube, one of the first results you will probably see is why you wouldn't survive in medieval time. Created by the popular channel The Infographics Show, the video starts with the premise that you have suddenly been transported back in time and have woken up in a medieval village. It then gives an explanation of what life would be like as a peasant farmer, and over the next 10 minutes goes on to describe aspects of daily life and experiencing famine, epidemics, and warfare. It's a grim story filled with disasters, poverty, and death. First things first, let's address the elephant in the room. That popular video about surviving in medieval times? It's entertaining, sure, but it's about as accurate as a knight in shining armor riding a unicorn. Many of their descriptions are oversimplified or just plain wrong. Yet, with over 2.5 million views, it's clear that people love a good medieval drama. But we wanted to dive deeper. Could you really survive in the Middle Ages? Let's set the scene properly. Imagine waking up in a quaint medieval village not in 17th century France or 15th century Japan, but in mid-14th century England. The video might not specify, but the clues point to this bustling era. Picture this. You open your eyes to find several villagers staring at you, whispering among themselves, "Who is this stranger, and what are they doing here?" Your first hurdle? The language barrier. You speak modern English, but 14th century English is a whole different beast. You might catch a few familiar words, but having a full-blown conversation. Dream on. However, don't despair. You've got a trick up your sleeve, your ability to write. Grab a stick and start scribbling in the dirt. It doesn't matter what you write. The villagers won't understand modern English anyway. But they'll quickly realize you're educated, and that's your golden ticket to survival. In a world where few could read or write, you've just become a person of importance. By painting a vivid picture and using a conversational tone, this revised section aims to engage viewers and help them visualize the challenges of medieval life. The lighthearted approach and humorous touches make the content more relatable and fun, keeping viewers hooked and eager to learn more. Your main challenge in the weeks and months ahead? Communication. You'll need to win the villagers' trust and convince them you're not just some crazy stranger who fell from the sky, even if that's technically true. They might think you're from a distant land, lost at sea and washed up on England's shores. Roll with it. It's better than trying to explain time travel. Show them you're not just a pretty face. Be helpful around the village. There's always work to be done, from tending to crops to mending fences. The more you pitch in, the more they'll warm up to you. Plus, it's a great way to start learning the language. Before you know it, you'll be chatting like a local. Well, maybe not quite, but you get the idea. Your next stop should be the local church or monastery. These were the hubs of medieval society, and the clergy held considerable influence. Show off your writing skills again. It'll impress them and might just convince them you're someone important. When they ask about your origins, get creative. Claim you're from a distant but not too distant land. Finland, perhaps. Say you were on a ship that got lost at sea and somehow ended up on England's shores. It's a tale as old as time, travel, and it'll pique their curiosity without raising too many eyebrows. Connecting with the local church is crucial. Not only can they help with your basic needs, but they can also introduce you to the wider world. Priests and monks are well connected, and if you want to thrive in your new medieval life, you'll need to rub shoulders with the upper echelons of society. Church officials are your best bet for making these valuable connections. By using vivid imagery, a conversational tone, and a touch of humor, this revised section aims to engage viewers and help them visualize the challenges and opportunities of medieval life. The lighthearted approach makes the content more relatable and fun, keeping viewers hooked and eager to learn more. You're not just here to survive, you want to thrive. That means ditching the peasant farmer life and leveraging your modern-day skills to make a name for yourself. Forget about your present-day job. Being an airline pilot or computer programmer won't get you far in the 14th century. But don't worry, your basic skills are about to become your superpowers. Your ability to do arithmetic and write it down is pure gold. Arabic numerals were still new and exciting, so your knowledge of them can land you jobs with governments, businesses, and the church. Everyone needs a good clerk or accountant. Your reading and writing skills are your ticket to a better life. Become a scribe and copy manuscripts. If you can master medieval English or Latin, you'll be in high demand. Got a knack for drawing or painting? Illustrated manuscripts fetch top dollar, so your artistic talents could be your meal ticket. Cooking isn't just about survival, it's an art form. Show off your culinary skills and you might find yourself cooking for nobility. Playing musical instruments can lead to some sweet gigs. Who knows? You might become the life of the medieval party. Know a thing or two about architecture? Your skills could help design the next big cathedral or castle. Believe it or not, playing chess could be a lucrative career. Show off your strategic prowess, and you might just impress the right people. To maximize your opportunities, make your way to a major city. In England, that means London. But if you're feeling adventurous, head to wealthy European cities like Florence or Venice. These bustling hubs offer more chances to live in luxury and make a name for yourself. By highlighting the value of modern skills in a medieval context and using vivid, relatable examples, this revised section aims to captivate viewers and help them envision the opportunities available in the Middle Ages. The lighthearted tone and engaging language make the content more enjoyable and memorable. The video is about surviving the Middle Ages stress dangers that could get you quickly killed, but one should not be too worried about them. For example, it's going to be highly improbable that you are going to be caught up in warfare unless you actively try to get involved in it. The English kings did go to war during the 14th century, usually with France and Scotland, but their armies were made up of people who choose to be there, either for money or as part of their noble service. Moreover, England in the 14th century was remarkably safe. There were some Scottish attacks along the northern border, and a handful of French raids on southern ports, but most of the country would never be threatened by invasion. It is true that sometimes the harvest failed in the Middle Ages, and it could lead to disasters like the Great Famine, which hit England between 1315 and 1322. Food security would always be a challenge, but that does not mean that everyone would be starving all the time. Governments put in measures regulating food supply and prices that could alleviate some problems. Moreover, if you already have some kind of work like the jobs listed above, you are probably going to have enough money to afford food. Sadly, like today, famine in medieval times was something that falls most harshly on the very poor. Finally, what about the Black Death? It is estimated that it killed between 1/3 and 1/2 of the population of Europe, so yes, it is a challenge. That said, there are some things you can do to increase your odds of surviving. This type of pandemic spread through a region quickly, but it would not last more than a few months. If you know it's coming, you can do what other medieval people did. Escape the city and try to ride out the plague from a more isolated location, aka extreme social distancing. You actually have a lot more important health concerns besides the Black Death. A recent study noted that more common diseases like tuberculosis were a greater threat. In general, the best advice is to eat well and do your best to maintain a healthy lifestyle. The same recommendations you would get for today. Finally, medieval physicians should not be totally avoided, as they can do a good job at healing injuries and wounds. The story of how one doctor was able to successfully remove an arrow buried halfway into a person's skull surely reveals some impressive skills. Imagine waking up one morning not in your cozy bed but in a medieval village. The sun is barely up and you're already late for a day of backbreaking work. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where every day is a battle for survival. Ever wondered if you could hack it in medieval times? Picture this. Your breakfast isn't a fancy avocado toast, but a chunk of stale bread, maybe dipped in ale if you're feeling fancy. Your morning coffee? Replaced by a mug of weak ale? Yes, even kids drink it. And forget about your comfy pajamas, you're wrapped in scratchy wool that's seen better days. In the Middle Ages, getting clean water isn't as easy as turning on a tap. You'd trek to the local river hoping it's not too polluted. And hunger? It's your constant companion. Meat is a luxury and your daily meals are more about survival than enjoyment. Think dense, gritty bread filled with bits of stone from the mill, a real tooth grinder. Let me paint you a picture. You're a peasant farmer up before dawn, plowing fields that seem to stretch forever. Your hands are calloused, your back aches, and you dream of a day off, but weekends? Vacations? Forget about it. Your life is a never-ending cycle of work, work, and more work. And if you think your job is tough, try being a tanner. You'd spend your days knee-deep in animal urine and feces, scraping hides. The smell is so bad, tanners are banished to the outskirts of town. Talk about a job that stinks, literally. But it's not all doom and gloom. With a bit of modern know-how, you could turn the tables. Imagine using your math skills to become a clerk, or your artistic talents to paint illuminated manuscripts. Suddenly, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Did you know that medieval people rarely bathed? They believed hot water opened pores to disease. So, a good scrub was a rare luxury. And those fancy castles? They were cold, drafty, and filled with smoke from open fires. Not quite the fairy tale setting you imagined, huh? So, could you survive in the Middle Ages? It's a tough call, but with a mix of modern skills and a lot of adaptability, you might just make it. And who knows, you might even enjoy the challenge. Next time you complain about slow Wi-Fi or a boring lunch, remember the medieval folks who'd give anything for your problems. So buckle up, because surviving the Middle Ages is no joke, but it sure makes for a great story. Imagine waking up in a medieval village, not to the smell of fresh coffee, but to the overpowering stench of, well, everything. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where personal hygiene takes a backseat to survival. Ever wondered how medieval folks stayed clean? Spoiler alert, they didn't. Bathing was a luxury and most people went months without a good scrub. Your fancy shower? Replaced by a basin of cold water if you're lucky. And forget about deodorant, everyone stank. And that was just a fact of life. Picture this. Your clothes are stiff with dirt and sweat, and you share your home with chickens, goats, and maybe even a cow. The smell is, let's just say, earthy. Your floors are covered in rushes that haven't been changed in weeks, creating a lovely layer of decomposing plant matter mixed with food scraps and mud. Let me set the scene. You're sitting in your dimly lit hut, the fire in the center of the room filling the air with smoke. You take a sip of your ale because water is a gamble, and feel a tickle on your neck. Is it a spider? A louse? Who knows? Parasites are just part of the medieval charm. And if you think modern healthcare is rough, try medieval medicine. Got a headache? How about a nice hole drilled into your skull to release those evil vapors? Feeling sick? A few leeches should do the trick, and if all else fails, there's always a nice mixture of crushed earthworms and pig marrow to soothe your aches. Yum! But it's not all bad news. Medieval folks had some surprisingly effective remedies like willow bark for pain relief, a natural form of aspirin. And while their understanding of germs was non-existent, they knew that certain practices like boiling water could keep them safe. Did you know that medieval people believed bathing opened the pores to disease? So they avoided it like the plague, pun intended. And those fancy castles? They were breeding grounds for rats, mice, and all sorts of critters. Not quite the romantic setting you imagined, huh? So could you survive the Middle Ages? It's a tough call, but with a strong stomach and a lot of adaptability, you might just make it. And who knows? You might even find a way to make medieval hygiene work for you. Next time you complain about a slow shower or a bad hair day, remember the medieval folks who'd give anything for your problems. So buckle up, because surviving the Middle Ages is no joke, but it sure makes for a great story. Imagine waking up in a medieval village not to the sound of your alarm but to the clanging of church bells. Welcome to the Middle Ages, where your place in society is as fixed as the stars in the sky. Ever wondered what it was like to live in a world where your fate was decided at birth? In the Middle Ages, social mobility was a foreign concept. If you were born a peasant, you stayed a peasant, unless you got lucky or played your cards right. Picture this. You're a lowly farmer, toiling in the fields from dawn till dusk. Your hands are rough, your back is sore, and you dream of a better life. But the feudal system has other plans. Your lord owns the land, and you owe him your labor and a hefty chunk of your harvest. Let me paint you a picture. You're standing in the village square, watching as a thief is punished for stealing a loaf of bread. The penalty? A harsh whipping or worse. Medieval justice is swift and brutal, and the law favors the wealthy. You quickly learn to keep your head down and stay out of trouble. And if you think modern networking is tough, try navigating the medieval social scene. Want to move up in the world? Better cozy up to the local priest or a wealthy merchant. And if you're really ambitious, you might try your hand at becoming a scribe or a clerk. Just don't let anyone catch you practicing your fancy new signature. But it's not all doom and gloom. With a bit of modern know-how, you could turn the tables. Imagine using your math skills to become a clerk or your artistic talents to paint illuminated manuscripts. Suddenly, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Did you know that medieval people paid tithes, a mandatory 10% of their income, to the church? And if you missed Sunday Mass, you could face fines or worse. The church's influence was all-encompassing, and speaking out against it could land you in hot water. So, could you navigate the complex social structure of the Middle Ages? It's a tough call, but with a bit of cunning and a lot of adaptability, you might just make it. And who knows? You might even find a way to climb the medieval social ladder. Next time you complain about office politics or a tough boss, remember the medieval folks who'd give anything for your problems. So buckle up, because surviving the Middle Ages is no joke, but it sure makes for a great story. Hopefully you will not be transported back to the Middle Ages and have to live the rest of your life there. It would certainly be an incredible challenge and adjustment. But if you do happen to time travel, remember that you can use your knowledge and skills to make a good living in that world. If you do, just make sure to write about your experiences so that future historians will get to read about them.